Hi, I'm the Naked Fairy, and it's been about 5 days since my last video. Lots been happening. Doing this video series has really opened up a lot of things, and some of those things were very scary. Overall, I think it's good. But it's been scary, it's produced a lot of anxiety, and it's really impacted my sleep. So, the last 5 days, I've done a lot of sleeping. I've also done a lot of thinking about things, and I've started working on a dedicated area to record these videos, as well as recording some non-trauma related videos that I'm very excited about. And I have to tell you what a great family I have that has been not only encouraging me in this video series, but also helping me as I've kind of expanded my emotional world outward a bit and decided to go public on some other things as well. Nothing earth-shaking, just me being all that I can be and not held back by my fears. Which kind of brings me to today's subject. I've spent a couple of weeks trying to figure out what was going on with my emotions and my psyche, and it reminds me that for those of us who have been victims of trauma and abuse, in childhood in particular, we often have trouble identifying our emotions. We simply don't know how we feel about something. It's complicated by the fact that a lot of emotions feel very similar. Anxiety and excitement both bring with them adrenaline surges, but while one is a call to fight or flight, the other is more of a call to action, and they can feel the same. And we don't always do a very good job telling them apart, particularly if we're prone to anxiety. When we feel excitement, we automatically default to acting as if that's an anxiety too, instead of genuine excitement. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about how we learn what our emotions are. Now, here's the thing. In a perfect world, we start with our parents, and they teach us about emotions. And in that perfect world, our parents are not only emotionally healthy, but they're emotionally available to us. They're connected to their emotions, and they express them. And what happens is something that's called mirroring. And it's just that. It's like looking in a mirror. Only your parents are your first mirror. So let's say that a baby giggles. The mommy or daddy looks at the baby and goes, "Ah, look, you're happy." Or if the baby's crying, the parent goes, "Aw, you're sad." Or if the baby is looking frustrated or angry, the parent might say, "Ooh, baby's unhappy. Are you upset about something?" And in doing this mirroring, babies start to learn that when they feel one way, it's called happy, or when they react another way, it's called funny, or there's sad, there's upset, there's frustrated, there's angry, and there's all these nuances of emotions. Unfortunately, that perfect world doesn't exist, or if it does, for nobody I've ever met. The other way that we learn emotions is once our personal little baby bubble starts to expand, is we learn it from others. Once again, it starts with the parents. Now let me give you two examples I saw. The first one before I actually had children, and the second one after I had my daughter. The first one was with my nephew. Now, if you've ever been around babies and toddlers, you know that they all have one thing in common. They fall a lot. They fall when they stand up. They fall when they walk across the room. They fall when they're running. They fall when they're playing. They just fall a lot. And my sister-in-law would have these huge negative emotions anytime my nephew fell. Anytime he just toddled over and landed on his butt, which, wow, they do that a lot. And I started to notice that my nephew would not react until he saw how his mom was reacting. So if it looked like a big fall and she had a, oh my gosh, are you okay reaction, he would burst out crying. And it was interesting watching this dynamic as he started to respond to her and base his responses off of how she was responding. And that kind of went, have to think about that. And when my daughter was doing all that falling bit, well, a lot of times it's that, just fall back on your butt. And I go, oops, ready to get back up? And she would. If there was a boo-boo, I'd say, you got a boo-boo. And if it was one of those boo-boos that you just don't need to deal with until after playtime, you'd go, it's okay, you can keep playing. Or I'd say, let's go get it cleaned up, and then we'll decide what to do. And that would give her space to tell me how much it hurt and how much it was bothering her. If it was bleeding a lot, well, again, that would depend. If there's a lot of things such as scrapes that will bleed a lot but that are not serious injuries, but then there are some wounds that are like a puncture wound, will often not bleed a lot but can be very serious. So, teaching your child that, oh, look, it's bleeding. Let's clean that up and see how much it hurts. Because you didn't want your child to automatically associate blood with pain or blood with a seriousness of an injury. On the other hand, you did want, you want your child to learn that when they're bleeding, they need to go clean it up and assess what's going on. So that was kind of the first thing, that realizing that not just in the mirroring, but in everyday play and everyday interaction with life, my child was going to take her cues from me. But the other thing that children do is they take their cues from each other, from other children. And this became really apparent when we went up to visit my sister-in-law and my niece and nephew there. One was a year older than my daughter and one was a year younger, and the three of them just got on like gangbusters, had so much fun together, and it was a lot of fun. But one night there was a really bad storm, and apparently my sister-in-law was very much afraid of lightning, and she had passed this fear on to her children, and so her children were very upset, and I could see my daughter's confusion. And we just let her know, it's okay. It's just some thunder and lightning. We didn't, we didn't try to tell the other kids that they were wrong. That was their emotions, and you don't start stirring up the pot with confusion. But we just let her know it's okay. It's just thunder and lightning. See, at the time, we lived in Central Florida. And Central Florida, particularly in the summer months, literally can have a thunderstorm every day. The sun can be shining brightly, and there's thunder and lightning in the sky. It's not unusual to have thunderstorms, and it's, Central Florida's kind of known as the lightning capital, and it happens a lot. And the first time, shortly after we got back, there was a thunderstorm, my daughter started to act afraid. And I just looked at her and I went, baby, you're not afraid of lightning. And she went, I'm not? No, you're not afraid of lightning. We have thunderstorms all the time. She said, but my cousins, yep, they're afraid, and that's okay. But you're not afraid, and that's okay too. Because we need to know that when our reactions differ from other people, that has some validity too. And if nothing or no one ever intervenes in that, and we quickly learn to copy other people, then we cease to have genuine responses. And then we grow up into adults, and guess what we do? We do that to our children. So a lot of us come into adulthood and we don't always know how we feel. Now you throw in PTSD, probably depression and anxiety, and those are clouding over everything, and it can be really difficult to know how you feel about things. And unfortunately, we don't always have good role models. Oh, and there's another thing that adds to this confusion. I call it crazy making. It's when you have a parent that says one thing and does another. When you have, like I did, a mom that would say, "Oh, I love you so very much," and then the next day she's beating me because I looked at her wrong. That sends a real mixed message to a child. And there's a lot of this sort of crazy making that happens in dysfunctional families, whether there's abuse or not. If the parents aren't really emotionally healthy or well connected to themselves emotionally, there's going to be some crazy salad as they express what they think they're supposed to express, what their life has taught them they should feel, as opposed to what they actually do. And so when children get mixed messages, and children are very attuned to body languages and subtle cues, when we get mixed messages like that, it just further stirs up the pot. So it's no wonder that I arrived into adulthood not understanding my feelings. And it's no wonder that a lot of you do too. One thing that has helped me is finding fictional role models. You can look at a genre, and for example, you can look at something and realize that, oh, most people find this sad. Now that doesn't mean you should automatically find it sad, but that gives you a clue that you can, oh, how does this make me feel? When you're watching something with a laugh track, or that the people around you are laughing to, you can say to yourself, oh, this seems to be funny. Do I find it funny? And it's the last part that we so often miss, because we don't know how to feel. We become dependent upon others, and learning to ask ourselves, is this how I feel? Or how do I actually feel? And if you're lucky, you'll find characters that really resonate with you and that you can learn from. And it can be difficult, but there's a lot out there. There is a whole world of books and movies and recordings and now videos that you can watch, and you can start to witness emotion on other people, and you can start to look at how you respond to things. I have to tell you that I kind of have a bit of a morbid sense of humor. I think some of this is a defensive response to some of the things that happened in my family, and I haven't gone into a lot of detail, but there was a period of time in my life when a lot of people were dying. Most of them older relatives, but still, there was a lot of death around me at an early age. So, for example, when there's certain things I see that other people see as being very morbid or very depressing, and I find them kind of amusing, and I've kind of learned to kind of hold those reactions in, that other people don't always respond favorably to them. And also, there are different types of humor. I respond well to vulgar and raunchy humor. I appreciate it. I respond well to political humor. I don't respond well to very polite humor. It just doesn't do it for me. I also don't always react to what other people find emotional or sad. A really obvious example of this was when I went to see Forrest Gump. I went with a friend of mine, and by the end of the movie, she and most of the theater were just sobbing. My reaction? Oh my gosh, this is so emotionally manipulative. And I'm very aware of when films and books do things to manipulate you emotionally. And I don't know if it's because of all the critical thinking courses I took as part of my philosophy major, but I can see a sad moment coming a mile off. And when the other people around me are sobbing, I'll be sitting there and they'll be going, "What's wrong with you?" Nothing's wrong with me. And to be able to say that, nothing's wrong with me, I just didn't find it to be sad. Because I don't find contrived things, even if they're contrived to be sad because my brain interjects. I'm not going to tell you that's a good or bad thing. It's just the way I am, and I accept it. On the other hand, when my daughter and I went to see Hidden Figures a couple weeks ago, there were a lot of moments in that movie that just had tears rolling down my cheeks. They weren't necessarily sad or bad moments. Some of them were moments of great triumph. But I felt like I was seeing the genuine outcome of people's emotions. And so, you need to be aware of that. Sometimes having an off reaction can be a real clue to you that something's off, but sometimes it's just because your perspective is different, and that's okay. I guess the gist of all of this is that your emotions, they're your own. And it's hard. It's hard when you have suffered from childhood trauma or childhood abuse. It's hard when you've grown up in an emotionally repressed family, or also an overly emotive family, to really be in touch with your own emotions, because you've gotten so many false messages in your life. And then we have a society that is all the time telling us how we should and shouldn't respond, that tells us this is sexy, or this isn't, or this is funny, but this isn't. You need to decide for yourself, but it's okay that you're confused. So I encourage you to start exploring your emotions. It's not always going to be pleasant, and sometimes it's really hard. I've been exploring some difficult emotions lately. The end picture is good and positive, but the journey to get there has been very unpleasant for me. But I know it's important that I let myself feel the things I'm feeling and then figure it out. It's really tempting to rush to judgment, to go, "Oh, this is what I'm feeling," and use that as a way to dismiss it. Sometimes you have to sit in an emotion for a little bit. Sometimes you have to let yourself react and just kind of observe it in yourself. And again, there are those reality checks sometimes you need to make. And sometimes those reality checks don't come from people in your life, they come from other sources. And you do what you need to do, but your emotions ultimately are good things. They can guide you, they can protect you. When we're small and we're hurt, we learn to ignore danger because we can't do anything about it. But that's a really good thing when you sense danger, to not ignore it. There's a reason we cross at crosswalks. You want to stay safe in life, and knowing the accurate reflection of your emotions is, well, it's certainly an improvement on not. So for your own safety, for your own sanity, and for your own happiness, you need to figure out what you're feeling. It's not something I can just tell you. Sure, I can tell you the dynamics of it, and I can share with you my experiences of it. But every person has to figure out for them what's happy, what's sad, what's glad, what's funny, what's just amusing, what's angry, what's rage. Because trust me, if you were abused or traumatized as a child, rage is in there, even if you've got it buried down so deep you're not feeling it. You have everything in you, and it's there, even if you're not feeling it now, or even if you're confusing it for something else. So it won't be easy, and it's not a quick fix by any means. But your emotions, they're yours to own. They're yours to figure out. And they're yours to enjoy and learn from. And they can be huge impediments to you, but they can also be hugely useful and can bring you so much joy. Because if you don't know what joy is, you don't know when you're feeling it. So go out there, observe, and then ask yourself, is that how I feel? Is that how I react? But whether you do it outside in the world, with friends and families, with a therapist or a pastor, or you do it watching movies or reading books, always remember that clothing is optional, but consent is not.